What's going on, everybody? Today is day 150 of zero gambling. That's basically 5 months now, which I'm feeling very proud of myself for achieving that. Um, Feels good. 5 months without gambling. You know, it's interesting, when you're in the heat of gambling addiction, everything in your life is kind of chaotic, and in a way it's exciting. There's the thrill, obviously, of gambling, but when it really becomes a problem for you, then that chaos becomes more negative. But I feel a lot more at peace now. My mental health is significantly better, even though my problems that I incurred, basically just financial debt. Like, I still have debt that I'm paying down from gambling, right? So, like, obviously there's still consequences and issues from the gambling, but mentally I feel so much better, not kind of being right in the middle of contending with that and fighting myself and trying to stop, and being pissed off at myself, devastated by what I've done. How could you do this? Then you go back, you do it again, then you hate yourself, and it's this awful cycle that, thankfully, now in my mind I've been able to break away from that, with having this much time away from gambling. So I definitely feel a lot more just happier. I feel a lot more like myself, to be honest. When I was addicted to gambling and actively gambling, I wasn't myself. Like, I'm a person that, for a little bit of, like, background context info about me. Um, if I'm being completely honest, I'm probably a little bit on the spectrum, and I don't just say that. I know people like to say that. As a kid, I was tested gifted, which, so I went into a different stream of schooling for gifted kids, which are kids that have a high IQ, but that also usually comes with some kind of a, there's always a trade off, right? You might excel in one certain area and then lack in another area, right? A lot of very bright kids, or kids that are, kind of borderline autistic. They'll be very good at school, or maybe they're great at math, maybe they're great at English, but they're not good at socialization, or they're not good at reading cues or body language or things like that, right? So there's always some kind of a trade off. And for me, one big thing that I've always had a tendency to do is I hyperfixate on hobbies. And I mean, if you even just look behind me here, it's kind of a testament to, like, we got art over here, and then we got bodybuilding over here, and then we got Warhammer, and then we got shoes, and it's just like, right? So my whole life, I kind of hyperfixate on individual hobbies, but generally, I go so hard into it that then I kind of like burn myself out, and then I move on to the next hobby, and then I get into it, and then the cycle repeats and repeats, and I keep moving on. And some hobbies have stuck and been consistent. Lifting weights, I've been doing consistently for 12 years now, and that passion never died. But I think a big piece of that is that some kind of a way to seek a feeling of dopamine, excitement, novelty, and what better thing to get dopamine from than gambling, right? So when I started gambling, I hyperfixated on it, but I hyperfixated on it to an extent where it shut almost everything else out. And I did not cycle through. I did not do it for a few months and then move on to the next thing, because that dopamine held me so hard that it was enough. Oh, okay, I can just keep doing this. This is the only thing that I want to do. Why would I want to draw? Why would I want to paint? Why would I want to play my guitar? That's boring. It takes effort. It's long. The payoff is delayed. If I just go right now, maybe I can make some money. Maybe I can feel good right away, right? So I got super fixated on the gambling, and it literally took me destroying my savings, going into debt, quitting, relapsing, hitting rock bottom a second time before I actually felt that exhaustion. So, whenever, let's just say drawing, okay? I'm getting into drawing, and all of a sudden I'm like really obsessed with it, drawing all the time, spending hours a day doing it, and then eventually it just kind of gets stale. I literally had to go through all of those things that I just described before gambling got stale. And I got to a point where I was gambling and I wasn't even feeling anything. It was just like I was like detached. It wasn't exciting anymore. I knew that I was just going to lose money. I knew that I was so deep in the hole. I wasn't chasing a loss. I wasn't, there's no chance I was going to make the money back. And it's like I would just do it. And thankfully, taking the steps that I did, seeing my therapist, opening up to my family and having more people in my corner, doing it this second time around, which I think is essential. And the first time that I quit for 6 months, but I did it completely by myself. And that basically is just not a good recipe for long term success if you don't have anybody around you or some kind of a support system to help you get through it, right? Um, so, yeah, just a tidbit on me, but how now I say that I feel like I've gotten back to myself because actually my passion for all of my other much more positive and productive hobbies has been rekindled. I've been playing guitar more. Recently, I've been drawing my graffiti a lot more. I might actually show you a couple of things I've been working on. I just did this. I went kind of experimental with a little bit experimental with the background, but pretty happy with the letters. And yeah, like last night, I just sat down for like 3 hours straight and just like grinded this, which like before I would have been sitting down for 3 hours and losing $500 to $1,000. Like, so it's a lot better. Got this one right here. This one says Venom. But yeah, so I definitely still think about gambling for sure. It's something that's not, I don't think it will ever leave me. It's always going to be a part of me that this happened, that I became a gambling addict, that I lost myself to it, I lost control, I was taken over by it. And, now I feel that I have control, but that that reality will always be there, and I don't think that will ever change for the rest of my life. I'm sure it'll continue to get easier, but I will always have to make an active attempt to not put myself into situations that are going to be conducive to me gambling, right? It's something that I'll just have to actively not do. Just like if you're an alcoholic, you probably don't want to spend too much time hanging around a bar, right? Um, so I still think about it, but it never gets past the ideation phase. The nice thing now with so much time is that the detachment of the emotional addict voice is sufficient that my logical brain actually holds weight. So when you're in active gambling addiction, you have your two voices. You have your devil and your angel. You have the addiction voice, which is also synonymous with almost your animal brain voice, your um, emotional voice. Basically, the voice just telling you to give in to your heart's desire and fulfill that want or need or that feeling right then and there and forget about the consequences, which is essentially the same for any addiction, right? And then you have the angel, which is the logical voice, which is your sober brain, your rational brain, factual, telling you things like, that statistically gambling will cause you to lose money. You know that you need this much money to pay XYZ bills. You should not gamble it. You know that you are already lost this much money and you are not going to win it back by gambling, right? Like this is like these are just facts that like you understand. And that's the killer part about the gambling addiction for those that are smart enough. Some people, my grandmother's one of them. She's so old and stubborn she would never admit. Thankfully, she can't drive, so she can't go to the casino. Otherwise, she'd be freaking broke. Right? But she would never admit that there's a problem, and she'll always defend it. Oh, you can't win if you don't try. That's her slogan. But for those of us who have understood that we have a problem and we want to stop, that fight where you fully understand the reality of the situation, you fully understand the consequences, you know what you're doing, but somehow the weight of just that feeling, that emotional drive, that addict brain is so powerful that it doesn't matter how much logic and reason you use, you just kind of succumb to it anyways. And now that there's been enough time away, that addict voice has essentially gone down so much that it doesn't hold a chance compared to my logical brain. So when I do think about gambling, let's say my brain says, hey, you should go to a casino and play some blackjack, right? I mean, basically just say, yeah, no, that's stupid. That's a terrible idea. You don't want to do that. You're going to lose money if you do that. And even if you don't lose money, you've been quitting for 5 months. You know what happens when you gamble. You're going to lose a lot more. It's inevitable, and don't do that. And basically, you can just stop it right there, right? You kill it in the ideation phase. It doesn't progress into any kind of action, and that is key. And it takes time, and it takes a support network, like I said, but it's definitely possible. And again, doing it with not on my own, but doing it with the help of others, I think was the key piece to making this time successful. We're just going to be coming up. This is 5 months now. The last time I quit, it was about 6 months. So soon we will meet the same amount of time, and I'm confident that we'll surpass that and go on for many more years and probably the rest of my life, hopefully, of not gambling, because that's just kind of the reality of the situation. But yeah, I hope all of you are doing well. You probably noticed I've been mixing in a couple of other kinds of videos on the channel, even just me talking about random things. I hope you don't mind. I would kind of like to turn this channel into just an avenue for me to talk about topics that I'm passionate about. Some of you have said that you think I'm a good speaker and you enjoy listening, so I would like to, keep moving towards that, and maybe I can turn it into something, because I do enjoy writing and talking about topics that I'm passionate about. That was probably, like my biggest skill in school was not math. It could have been, but due to a series of teachers that I had, which can make all the difference, basically turned me into hating math. So where my strength really was more in linguistics, writing, persuasion, argument, debate, essays, that sort of thing. So I went to university for philosophy. I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I got my philosophy degree. I realized I had zero interest in becoming a lawyer whatsoever. But philosophy is all about writing essays, making arguments, and contending with interesting, contentious topics that are not always clear cut, or maybe they're controversial. So I really enjoy that stuff, and I like talking about it, and I like to formulate my thoughts and create arguments and things like that. So if you want to see me talk about any topics or anything like that, feel free to drop a comment. But I think I'll leave it there for now. 150 days and going strong. So I hope y'all are doing well. As always, appreciate, like, comment, subscribe. Everything helps. And I also wouldn't have been able to do this without this YouTube channel, honestly. This is one of the biggest accountability pieces and support networks that I created for myself. Even if it's online, even if it's anonymous through comments or whatever, this created a whole other level of accountability of me feeling like I owe it to anybody that's watching and going through the same thing to stay on the path. So, yeah, I just wanted to mention that and thank you guys before I signed off for today. Have a good one, guys, and enjoy the weekend. Peace.